If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined by Rob Donaldson in segment number 2. He does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. We're going to be chatting with him about what he's all seen thus far this season in Major League Baseball, some of his takeaways from the first, we're going to call it about 2 months or so of the season, and then we're going to be diving in on a lot of these games for Friday in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Edge Boost making sure that bettors are able to access their funds all day, every day, no matter what the circumstances are. They are making sure that everything is on the up and up there and that you're able to earn cashback rewards when you utilize Edge Boost. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, type in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Thursday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The double dip was split on Thursday between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. Game number 1 goes the way of the Phillies by a count of 5-4 as A.J. Smith-Shawver was only able to go 2 2/3 innings. He gives up 2 runs, including a home run. Going deep for the Phillies, how about home run number 1 of the campaign for the backup catcher and Rafael Marchand. And a little bit later on in the game, Kyle Schwarber, he goes deep off of Pierce Johnson. 19th home run of the campaign for Mr. Johnson. He gives up that home run in 2/3 of an inning of work. Scott Blewett, not bad in long relief, gives up an earned run in 2 1/3 innings. Aaron Bummer, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. You had Desmond Hernandez give up a run in 1/3 of an inning. And the Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, he goes for a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Cadiz for Sanchez, a little bit more length for the Phillies, 5 2/3 innings, allows 2 runs. From there, Matt Strom does give up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, but Orion Kirkring for outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Jordan Romano scoreless inning, and Jose Ruiz was able to provide a 1/3 of an inning for Romano. Scoreless inning, but walked 3 batters, so that got a little bit hairy, and then in game number 2, all about the Atlanta Braves. 9-3 the final. Braves now 10-20 on the road, by the way, but Chris Sale was dealing 6 scoreless innings. You had Rafael Montero from there, give you a scoreless inning. Raisel Iglesias gives up a run in an inning, and great name, Michael Peterson. That's my dad's name, by the way. He gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning. I think my dad could have done that. And then Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler, well, he was not Whelan and he was not dealing. 6 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. A lot of home run to Ozzie Albies, 6th home run of the campaign. Then Austin Riley, home run number 9 of the season. That comes off of Joe Ross, who gives up 2 runs in an inning of work. Carlos Hernandez, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and you were able to have Brett DeGeis come in. He gave up 1 run over the course of 2 innings for the Seattle Mariners. This was not what they were looking for as they get pounded by the Washington Nationals in the 10th inning. This game is 2-2 going into the 9th inning, and if you, like me, had the under, this was just all sorts of brutality. 9-3 the final. As for the Washington Nationals, they put up a 7 spot in the 10th inning as Emerson Hancock, relatively rock-solid start here for the Seattle Mariners. He goes 5 1/3 innings scoreless. Gabe Spire, he gave you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Carlos Vargas, Matt Brash, along with Andres Munoz, all on his scoreless inning, and then Colin Sider. 7 runs, 5 of which were earned, and he gives up a home run along the way. As going deep, Josh Bell, 8th home run of the campaign, and then Mackenzie Gore, he does not get gored. He was able to go for 6 scoreless innings. From there, Orde Lopez, he gives up a pair of runs over the course of 2/3 of an inning of work. Jose Ferrer, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Cole Henry, he goes for a pair of outs out of the bullpen, and then you had Kyle Finnegan come in. He gave a pair of outs, gives up an under run in his 2/3 of an inning of work, and Edward Bazardo, to the credit of the Seattle Seattle Mariners. He was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless as well. The Toronto Blue Jays had scored a combined 6 runs in their last 6 games, and they explode for 11 runs in the first 3 innings of their game against the A's. They get the win by a count of 12-0. This was not what Jacob Lopez was hoping for. He got 5 outs and he gave up 7 runs, all of which were earned, including a pair of bombs. And then Anthony Maldonado, he gives up 4 runs in an inning, including a pair of bombs of his own. As going deep for the Toronto Blue Jays, you have Bo Bichette get his 6th home run season, Ernie Clements 2nd home run of the season, George Springer 6th home run season, Vlad Guerrero Jr. his 8th. From there, Sean Newcomb 3 1/3 innings scoreless. Hogan Harris was not necessarily Hogan's hero, so he gave up a run in an inning, but you were able to get a scoreless inning as well out of Mr. William McIver. Hopefully I said that correctly. That is the backup catcher. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, Jose Barrios 6 scoreless innings, Mason Fluharty a scoreless inning, and Jose Reina was able to come in for a pair of scoreless innings. And then the Tampa Bay Rays, they absolutely take it to the Houston Astros, this by a count of 13-3. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, the Boz, Shane Boz, gives up a pair of home runs, 3 runs in total over the course of 5 2/3 innings. Jose Altuve, 9th home run season. Yennier Diaz, his 6th home run season, but Ryan Gusto, he gives up 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings, and then from there, the bullpen completely collapses. Brian King, who's been rock solid all season long, 5 runs allowed, and he got 1 out of the bullpen. Bennett Sosa, he gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Stephen Okert was able to come in for a scoreless inning along Caleb Ort. Forrest Woodley gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and Cesar Salazar, he is the backup catcher. He was able to come in and he held down the fort for a scoreless inning. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, Junior Caminero is able to get his 11th home run of the campaign. And in terms of what we all saw in Major League Baseball on Thursday, all 5 games, by the way, went over the total, which that has been the opposite of what we've been seeing this baseball season. It's been very much an underwhelming baseball season thus far, with the under hitting at a little bit north of 53%. We've seen 375 overs of 426 unders, and for favorites, hitting at about 58.5%, 46 and 346 on the money line. If you look at the last 7 days in baseball, favorites hitting a little bit over 57%, 51 and 39 on the money line. Then the under hitting at a little bit over 55.5%, 48 unders to 39 overs. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Thursday. Now let's turn forward to Friday and get some general takeaways from our good friend Rob Donaldson with the Rob's Best Bet Show. Next, right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beats and Family Podcast.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And it's always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does a great job with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such amazing insights. And you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at RobDFB. And if you want to check out his YouTube videos, that's over at his name, Rob Donaldson on YouTube. And Rob, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. And I know here on Thursday, as we're kind of recording this, we don't have a lot of games to talk about, but at least Friday and the weekend is bringing us full slates and a lot of really great games, and I'm excited to jump into it with you here.
Absolutely. There's a reason why they call it Friday, because, well, it was Thursday a big giant boo in terms of having only 5 games. But that said, we are now past Memorial Day, so we have gone through that, shall we say, landmarker that a lot of people take a look at in baseball. What have been some of your just takeaways from this baseball season thus far, now that we're 2 months in?
Well, you know, and we were kind of talking about this even from the jump when you look at the American League, but it really is the Tigers and the Yankees in terms of just a solidified top tier. And then you have a million different teams in a second tier and even a third tier, which really isn't like a large gap. And very similar to the National League now, just a lot of competitive baseball across the board, unless you're, you know, I don't know, the Orioles, which is random, the White Sox, the Rockies, the Pirates, and the Marlins. Everyone else is playing some pretty competent baseball, and I think that's really great for the sport.
Yep, and man, with the Colorado Rockies, the fact that we are approaching June and they have yet to get to 10 wins. Like, my gosh. I think that we have had about 9 weeks of baseball thus far, and to consider this, for the Kansas City Chiefs, in their first 9 weeks of the NFL season, they went 9-0. And the Rockies are going to be stuck on 9 wins after 9 weeks of the baseball season. Like, that's the level of stinkitude that we're talking about right now with the Colorado Rockies. And that leads us into this. How can we extract value on this Rockies team where they're going to be about a plus 285 underdog against the New York Mets? Because typically, if you were to get any sort of competent baseball team here, you'd think, oh, plus 285. Great value here with the Colorado Rockies. Unfortunately, the only value is betting against them, but now they're really taxing us.
And in Major League Baseball, it's always been any given night, and I still believe that about pretty much every single one of these
If you give me plus $3 on darn near anyone, I'm going to take it, but I can't do it now.
No, absolutely not. And honestly, when you have this Rockies rotation that is now without Ryan Feltner, who I thought was actually one of the bright spots
and
in
Chase
this rotation, and Chase Dolander's no longer there, it's like, okay, who do we look to as maybe the guy who can scrape out a first 5 value line, because you don't want to trust his bullpen. This bullpen is absolutely terrible outside of Jake Bird. And I guess it's Kyle Freeland. I mean, you're rolling the dice with him because it's kind of like roulette. He either gives up 2 or 3 runs, or he gives up 17 runs, and your bet is done by the first inning. So it's so hard to extract value. I think 100% it's on those unders for the first 5, but my goodness, I think you're really pressed no matter what angle you try to take with the Rockies here.
You just don't bet on the Rockies to do anything good. That's what I have learned, because they've been a nice under team because they're averaging 2.36 runs per game away from home. And that was with their 14 spot against the Arizona Diamondbacks that came from out of absolutely nowhere about a week or so ago. So yeah, that's relatively rough to say the least. In terms of more competitive baseball, we're going to be seeing a little bit more of that, as well as I take a look at this game. I think that's interesting. The Blue Jays just have not been hitting recently. The pitching has been good, but hitting has not been there. You got the A's and the Blue Jays, with the Blue Jays throwing out their Chris Bassett a minus 160 favorite, total of 8. I'm not sure how you take a look at this, but the way that I look at Jeffrey Springs and really all these A's pitchers, they pitch much better away from home rather than at home, and getting north of plus 140, I feel like it's good value on the Athletics.
Yeah, and especially when you look at this A's rotation, maybe nobody's really doing anything spectacular outside of Sevy in terms of the strikeout department and kind of maneuvering around base runners, but you have a lot of league average pitchers that are always going to kind of keep the A's lineup in the game, and the A's lineup, unfortunately, has kind of been one of these volatile roller coasters of some games, they're fantastic, other games, they're completely dismal, and it makes it a little bit difficult in terms of betting maybe like an A's money line or a plus 1.5 type run line. But what we can really bank on when they are going up against a guy like a Chris Bassett, who really only gives up the long ball, is kind of where he's taxed. He's not taxed with a bunch of walks or a bunch of base runners and then, the gapping doubles or the single that clears 2 runners off the bases. He really is susceptible to long balls. Maybe you do look at an under again here with the Blue Jays, and I think you nailed it. Their series against the Rangers was so anemic, and I think that's partially the identity of this team, because some of the guys in those premium spots in their lineup really just aren't hitting well right now.
Yep, absolutely. I think that it's going to be an interesting watch for them moving forward, and I just can't trust in that sort of an offense laying that big of a number. As Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the Rob's Best Bet Show, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and this should be a fun one. I don't think a lot of people had on their bingo card Royals versus Tigers being an impactful series, but here we are with Seth Lugo, a very slight underdog against the Detroit Tigers and Casey Mize at total of 8. How do you take a look at this one with a pair of guys that they really don't get a lot of strikeouts, but they've done a great job of inducing soft contact over the last few seasons?
Yeah, and Casey Mize has always been a weird one for me just because, he's kind of teetered the line of not giving up super hard contact, but also not really inducing a ton of soft contact. But to your point, he was drafted 1 overall because of the potential strikeout opportunities, which never have come to fruition in his Major League Baseball career. regardless, he still has carved out a really nice role as a guy who can go out there, give you quality starts game in, game out. And with this being in the K, and whether this was in Comerica or at the K, you're going to have a pitcher-friendly ballpark on your hands. And I do look at the first 5 innings through this matchup. I do like the under. And we were talking about the full game here as well. I do think that the Royals in this type of spot can get up under one of their horses in the rotation. And I actually do like them on a nice little money line price here.
Yep, I do as well, and I think that this is going to be fun to take a look at because I'm also going to be in on the Royals on the money line, be able to get a little bit of plus value. I think it's really nice for me, and I take a look at this matchup, and it's one of the most intriguing ones. As if you look at the season-long numbers for Cal Quantrill, absolute garbage. He has been posting up a 6 ERA, but he's been a little bit better recently. We're getting about a plus 150 or so on this Marlins money line going against Kyle Harrison and the Giants, and I just don't know what to expect out of Kyle Harrison as a starter. That Giants bullpen is solid, but being able to get plus 150 on the fish, maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe I will actually be fish food, but I'm willing to take the plus number here.
Yeah, and, more so than just the full game, just because that would end up involving, the Giants bullpen, which is very good, and the Marlins bullpen, which is, oh my goodness. You want to talk about a sort of a spin of the roulette wheel in terms of how much runs they're going to give up in one game. I actually do like Cal Quantrill. I have a certain affinity for the guy because he has been rock solid in terms of, yes, does he allow base runners in certain spots? For sure, but he induces a lot of ground balls, a lot of double plays, and he has been doing this year in and year out for his entire career. And in this spot in particular, going up against Kyle Harrison, I do wonder about how a guy like a Kyle Stowers is going to be affected, and he really is the Marlins offense at its core. But Eric Wagaman, Connor Norby, 2 guys who are swinging the bats really well from the right-hand side of the plate, I would actually target them in some player props. And, to your point, I would look at that first 5 sort of market and target the Marlins on the money line there.
Yep, I think so as well. I think that that's a really good way of being able to play it. As joining me on the show, we do have Rob Donaldson of the Rob's Best Bet Show. And how about if we take a look at this one? Because you mentioned at the top that the Orioles are just not playing great baseball. And right now with the Orioles, they're being priced as if they're playing good baseball. As they're between minus 220 to a minus 235 against the White Sox at a total of 9. I think that you're going to agree with me. We don't want to be playing the Orioles at minus 220 on the money line, but is this a place where you take a shot on the White Sox, you pass altogether, or do you look at something else?
Well, I look at Zach Eflin, and I think there's such a sort of an emphasis placed on this Orioles rotation right now to go out there and perform because, through the month of May, through the month of April, and even at the back end of March, these guys weren't going out there and actually performing well at all. Nobody even really knew what the rotation would look like coming into the season. And Zach Eflin, he's had some rough outings this year already, but he is a guy that I think if there's any chance for this Orioles rotation to turn around, he's almost got to be the catalyst while everybody else gets healthy. And I do feel like he's going to go up there and give them a chance to win this game. It also is a benefit that you have Burke on the bump, who has been getting tagged up with a little bit of hard contact. And I do think that the Orioles through the first 5 innings will have a lead. So maybe just a run line on the half run line through there. You're still eating a little bit of juice, but actually kind of like an underspot in this territory with, again, a pitcher in Zach Eflin that I think has to go out there and shove.
Yeah, because if he doesn't, well, there's somebody else that's going to. It's Kate Povich and company. Not been great for the Orioles, to say the least. What else I think is very interesting, we've got Yankees and Dodgers. It doesn't get to be much more blue blood in baseball than that. Tony Gonsolin against Max Fried, and right now with the Yankees, right around about minus 135 or so favorites on the road and a total of 8.5. Want to get your thoughts here, because with Tony Gonsolin, just not a guy that I have a lot of faith in. And for Max Fried, it's been an incredible start to the season. I sense a little bit of regression with Max Fried just because a sub 150 ERA. Nobody's going to be able to maintain that, but such an interesting matchup between these two.
Yeah, and Tony Gonsolin, to your point, he's actually, his numbers on the surface aren't even looking that good earlier in the season where he's coming off of an injury at the beginning part, but he's already faced the Marlins twice to kind of help aid those numbers, and they still are where they are. And when you look at the hard hit numbers underlying those surface numbers, it's not a lot pointing in terms of like positive regression for him on the horizon, and now he's got the Yankees knocking on his door. And I get it. This is a very almost like suspicious price when you're talking about, Max Fried, a guy who's going to be in that AL Cy Young conversation, only getting a minus 130-ish type of money line. But I say you go for it. I say you lay it. And I would even lay a run line in the spot against Tony Gonsolin. Just not a guy that I'm optimistic really carries this throughout the season. And I think he's probably out of the rotation sooner rather than later.
Yep, it's going to be interesting to see how the Dodgers utilize this rotation because with Clayton Kershaw, honestly, a good start on, I believe it was Wednesday against the Cleveland Guardians, but he's a little bit up there in years as well. You don't know what you're going to be able to get out of him moving forward, so they're going to be looking at doing a lot of mixing and matching, and I do have to get your thoughts here as the LA Angels have just been a wackadoo, crazy, and insane team. Trying to be able to gauge this team, it's like licking your finger, putting it in the air, and trying to determine what the weather is. That's this LA Angels team. Right now, we've got a total of 8. Luis Ortiz against Jose Soriano with the Cleveland Guardians right around about a minus 145 favorite. How do you take a look at this game? Because I just look at this total of 8, especially with the Angels bullpen being as terrible as it is, and Soriano giving up north of 4 walks per 9 innings, and it just feels too low.
Yeah, and Soriano's been one of those guys that I've kind of enjoyed watching, but he's almost like a chaotic Carlos Martinez-esque guy when he was with the Cardinals, where is he going to walk maybe 2 guys right off the bat? Yes, but can he turn a double play immediately after that and then strike out the side or something to that effect? For sure. He's sort of a chaotic pitcher with that sidewinding rotation or motion rather, pitching over the top. And I do wonder in this game if he can give them enough length in terms of trying to avoid that bullpen. Yusei Kikuchi did that against the Yankees last time out, and guess what? The Angels didn't score a single run. Now you got Luis Ortiz, a guy who has been a little bit of a piñata this season, and I kind of have to feel like the Angels are going to be able to score some runs here. And, maybe this is just me jumping off a cliff along with the LA Angels, but I am going to be willing to take them on the money line in kind of a weird spot against the Guardians here.
Yeah, it's a very strange one to say the least. I just think that we're going to get a lot of runs in general, so I'm going to be in on the over in this spot personally, and we've got ourselves a very good slate of games on Friday, much better than Thursday because we actually have games. But that said, anything else that you're taking a look at in terms of this Friday card?
I look at that Brewers-Phillies game, and when you're looking at the sort of the weather prediction, it's supposed to be, wind pointing out to dead left center for the Philadelphia game in Philly. It's a hitter-friendly ballpark, and there's a lot of Phillies in this lineup right now who are swinging extremely hot bats. Truly one of the best hitting teams in baseball at this point in time, and they're going up against Quinn Priester, who I think has shown kind of a lot of up and down this season and has dodged a lot of bullets, but against the Phillies lineup that can really hit you 1 through 7, I don't think he's going to be able to dodge those bullets for 4 or 5 innings, and so I really do like the Phillies kind of laying that half run through the first 5, and I do think that you can even take a full game angle there on the run line and feel pretty confident with it.
I think that that's a good angle that you've got there, and the best angle that we have on this show is getting you aboard because you do such an amazing job taking a look at this wonderful game of baseball. Every single time you join me, you lend such great insights, so let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you, and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a pleasure to hop on here with you. And, for those who are wanting to follow my Major League Baseball bets day by day, you can do so on Twitter/X at RobDFB and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man.
It is always great to be able to get Rob aboard every single time he joins me. He lends such great insights, did so once again today. So a big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on the game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we catch them on.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson. He does such great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. And he did so once again today, so a big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment, and now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games, those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. Now, do note that I'm doing this with a few off-the-board pitchers as well, so that's something that you do need to keep in mind. So these might change a little bit in the AM. That's going to be all updated on the old Twitter/X feed. So how about if we do get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board? This is one of those games that's off the board in most places as the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are into Cincinnati. They're onto the road. They're facing off against the Chicago Cubs. As of right now, it is going to be Andrew Abbott who goes for the Cincinnati Reds, and right now the betting board reads to be determined for the Cubs. I was seeing Colin Ray a little bit before, and right now FanDuel has an initial opener with the Reds at a plus 144, minus 172 on the Cubs, and actually did set a total, even though it's a Wrigley Field game. 8.5 is the total with the over at a minus 115 and the under at a minus 105. I did set my total at an 8.1 if you do get Abbott versus Ray, so I'll most likely be looking at the under, unless if you get like a total bullpen game of the Chicago Cubs, which I don't think that you're going to get a total bullpen game for the Chicago Cubs. And if it is indeed Colin Ray, in my opinion, he's doing for a little bit of regression. He's not necessarily some sort of a high-octane strikeout pitcher or anything like that. He's been posting up a 3.28 ERA. He's been pretty rock solid in the command as well. He's been able to cut down on the walks to about 2.7 walks per 9 innings this year, about 7.5 strikeouts per 9. And what he's done a nice job of is with the Milwaukee Brewers, was giving up about 1.6 and 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. That's down to 1 home run per 9 innings, but coming in having given up at least 5 runs in 2 out of his last 4 starts, including giving up a 6 spot to the Cincinnati Reds in his last start. And for Andrew Abbott, I do think that he's doing for a little bit of regression as well, but keep in mind that with regards to conditions that we're going to be seeing on Friday, might not necessarily be the world's greatest hitting conditions. Right now, it looks like the wind is going to be blowing a little bit directional, but it's going to be blowing a little bit in. It's going to be blowing in probably right around about 7 to 10 miles per hour, so certainly should be able to help out these pitchers. And for Andrew Abbott, he's been able to do a nice job of just mowing them down this far this season. How about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up less than a home run per 9 as well. 170 ERA, but a 346 fielding dependent, so do have to take a little bit of caution there. And for the Chicago Cubs team, it's been the Death Star with regards to our lineup. They are number 1 in all baseball in terms of runs per game, as you've got a quartet of different guys who will be able to supply you with at least 11 home runs this season, with Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Tucker, Lon Dansby Swanson leading the way, and Crow Armstrong 15 home runs at a 275 average. I did not see that coming. And then you've got a bunch of guys around them that are moving the line. Carson Kelly, 9 home runs in his first 110 or so at bats, north of a 400 on base. Nico Horner is hitting about a 290. You've got Miguel Amaya who's been able to 280. So these guys have all been able to do a nice job there. And for the Cincinnati Reds, this has been a top 8 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home, but that is a little bit of an outlier set because they had the game against the Baltimore Orioles about a month or so ago where they put up a 24 spot on Charlie Morton. So that got things a little bit harebrained, but Ellie De La Cruz, 11 bombs. He's starting to give you a 330 on base. Strikes out a little bit more than what you'd like, but you know what? He moves the line. You need to get a little bit more out of the likes of Matt McClain, though. He's hitting about a $180. You haven't been able to get a ton out of some of these ancillary outfielders. Like they've been mixing and matching between Jake Fraley, Blake Dunn. These guys have been in and out of the lineup all season long. They just haven't necessarily found a fit there, but Gavin Lux has been able to give you about a 380 on base along with TJ Friedel. And for Spencer Steer, he's starting to get online a little bit more, but it's been a little bit rough there. Santiago Espinal sitting at 270, and big for the team is that they've got Austin Desai's kid back, who he's been dealing with a little bit of injury. Now, he is a little bit questionable because he did take a foul ball off the foot on Wednesday, and that could be hurting the team a little bit more, but 6 bombs, he's been able to give you about a 300 average. So it's an interesting circumstance here. Again, with the wind blowing in, 8 or less, looking at the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. I set the Cubs at a minus 149 on the money line if it is indeed Colin Ray. If it were to be a bullpen game, probably about 20 cents less, so would need at least a plus 149 to take a shot on the Reds, minus 148 or better, riding with the Cubs. 9-3, 9-4 on the betting board. The Brewers are on the road. They're facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies. I start 1 Taijuan Walker goes for the Phils, and Quinn Pricer is on the bump for the Brewers. 9 is the total. The over is -115 to -120. Under is between even and -105, and the Phillies are between -130 to -140 favorites. Between +122 to +128 is that number on the Brewers. And for the Brewers, I set them at a +152. I know that Taijuan Walker last year was just a complete and utter fate, and he was one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball, but this isn't 2024 anymore. It's 2025. Now, do I think that Taijuan Walker is going to be keeping up the absolute Herculean run that he's had thus far this season? No, he's down to a less than 3 ERA. Fielding dependent is more in that neighborhood by 376. He's still only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's cut down on the deep ball. Last year gave up 2.6 home runs per 9 innings, down to about 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, but oh no, he looks like a little bit of change pitcher. Has given up approximately 3 runs in each out of his last 2 starts, but overall, I like what I'm seeing there. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Pricer. He's been okay for the Brewers. The command really needs to be getting online a little bit more. 4.23 ERA, about a 4.64 fielding dependent. The 4.5 walks per 9 innings, especially with them getting still less than 7 strikeouts per 9. That is a little bit concerning though, but all in all, he's been able to hold the ball in the yard. Has given up approximately 1 earned run in 3 out of his last 4 appearances, but with this Brewers lineup, it is a little bit hit or miss in that you've got Christian Yelich who's been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers, but he's hitting right around the Mendoza line of 200. You just need a little bit more out of him, as he's just not that same MVP guy anymore. And then Jackson Chourio, 8 home runs, but only about a 270 on base himself. You've got William Contreras, who's been able to give you a 350 on base. Bryce Rang's up to about a 340 on base as well. The middle infielders are just not giving you a ton. Caleb Duran, Joey Ortiz, these guys are hitting in that neighborhood about a 210, so you need a bit more there, but you have been able to get a little bit out of Sal Frelick, who's been able to give you a 360 on base. He, Terrain, Christian Yelich, all give you a double-figure amount of stolen bases, so the Brewers have done a nice job in terms of being able to get men in motion. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, other than Kyle Schwarber, you just don't have a ton of power on this team. Schwarber, 19 home runs, has been absolutely amazing with darn near 400 on base, and then Bryce Harper, he's been able to supply you with 8 home runs at 375 on base, but he's right now dealing with that elbow injury after he took a ball off the elbow a few days ago, so wouldn't be surprised if he's out in this game as well. Trey Turner, though, has been able to hit about a 300. You've got plenty of guys that have been able to give you about a 262, 275 average. Hell, boom, Bryson Stott certainly being 2 of them, and then you've got Armando Sosa, who's been able to hit north of a 300 as well, but this is also a Phillies bullpen that have to have your trepidations with, and frankly, both of these teams you have to have your trepidations with regards to these bullpens. As for the Brewers, last year, Yo Payamps, Elvis Piquero were really good for this bullpen. Both of these guys have been either banged up or sent down to the minors this year. Jared Koenig is giving you north of 3 ERA. Trevor McGill's been rock solid, and I like Abner Uribe, but both of these teams entered into the latter half of Thursday with a 4.55 bullpen ERA, so not great there. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, Jose Alvarado decided that he was going to take weight loss supplements, and now he's going to be lighter in the pocket because he is suspended for 80 games. Matt Strahm has been able to give you a sub-350 ERA, but he's pretty much the only guy that entered into Game 2 of that double dip with a sub-350 ERA. Orion Kirkering seems to be rounding into form a little bit more along Tanner Banks, but these guys have been pretty rough to say the least as far this season. Carlos Hernandez has not been great. Jordan Romano has not been great, so it's an interesting little bit of circumstance here. I did set my total at 8.8. The conditions out there in Philadelphia, they're okay for hitting, but they're not necessarily amazing, and I like what I'm seeing out of Taijuan Walker. Did set Walker as a -152 favorite, so we'll delay a little bit of a bigger money line here on the Phils, and going to be looking at the under 905, 906 on the card. You've got the Metropolitans playing us to the Colorado Rockies, as Kyle Freeland is on the bump for Colorado, and David Peterson, great name, is on the bump for the Mets. Mets are between -335 to -365 favorites, and +285 to +295 is that number on the Rockies. 7.5 is the total. Over is -120 to -125. The under is anywhere between even and +105. And if you're looking to lay a run half right now with the New York Mets right now, the lone initial opener I'm seeing is over at FanDuel. You're going to be laying a nice hefty -154, and I'm willing to go up to a -177. I recognize that the Rockies covered a few run lines in that series against the Chicago Cubs, but of their losses, I believe now all but 7 of them have been by multiple runs, and they've got right now a 9-47 record. Like, the Washington Generals are offended as to how uncompetitive they've been this far this season. And for the Colorado Rockies, you actually have some okay bullpen pitching. Like, you've been able to have the likes of a Jake Bird, Zach Ognos, both be able to give you a sub-2 ERA. You've been able to get some okay production as well out of Seth Halverson. Victor Vondick being on the injured list has hurt them, but and you've been able to get a little bit of something there. And for Kyle Freeland, there should be a little bit of positivity for him. If you take a look at the ERA, it does not match up with the Fielding Independent. Right now, a 5.86 ERA. Fielding Independent is a sub-4 because he's kept the ball in the yard. He's given up less than a home run per 9 innings, but Kyle Freeland just does really pitch to a lot of contact. 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's only giving up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, but man, it's just not great for this team to say the least. And for the Colorado Rockies, can someone just be able to get a hit on the road? This is a team that right now, with regards to their road run production, 2.36 runs per game. No other team is below 3 runs per contest. Like, my gosh. And they put up a 14 spot against the Arizona Diamondbacks like a week and a half ago on the road. I mean, imagine you take that game out of the fold, they're averaging like 2 runs per game on the road. And I'm not even kidding. You've got Jordan Beck, who's been able to give you 8 home runs thus far this season, but he's doing none of that on the road. Really, the lone guy that's been able to hit on the road this year has been Hunter Goodman. Goodman, when he has been on the road, he's been able to supply the team with 5 home runs. He's been able to do a solid job in terms of hitting at 300. I will give Beck a little bit of credit. I believe that 5 home runs of his have been on the road. So credit where it is due, but this team is sitting as a whole a $1.94 when they are on the road, and all these guys are hitting below a 170 on the road. Ezekiel Tovar, welcome back to him. Ryan McMahon, along with Brenton Doyle, Michael Taglia, Edel Amador. Like, man, it's just rough. And then you've got a New York Mets team that they should be able to pound the tar out of Kyle Freeland. I recognize that Juan Soto has been a big giant waste of money, but still, I think that he's going to be able to turn it around. He's still giving you north of 350 on base, and even though he's not hitting for average, he's still taking his walks. You've got Francisco Lindor along with Pete Alonso, who in the meantime are doing a nice job holding it down. These two guys combined 21 home runs. Both of these guys give you a relatively solid on base. Lindor sitting at 270, Pete Alonso 390 on base. You could use a little bit more out of Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, both hitting between about a 225 to 235, and sort of now hitting 225, a little bit less than savory as well. But Brett Baty has been able to give you 6 home runs, about 110 at bats. He's starting to move the line. Louis Torrance at the catcher spot has been rock solid, and this is the best team that is in the top 6 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've gotten relatively good production out of both Oscar Brazobin along with Reed Garrett. Both of these guys, a sub 150 ERA. Edwin Diaz has been really good at the closer spot. Ryan Stanek, Max Kranick, these guys have been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. So I do think that for the New York Mets, are going to be able to take it to the Colorado Rockies. And David Peterson has been very good this season. He was down with the strikeout numbers last year, and he hasn't quite got back to where he was at like 2022, 2023 when he was getting north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but still he's been closer to about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings as far this season. He's still giving out about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but 280 ERA, fielding independent of 340, doing a great job keeping the ball in the yard, has given up 1 or 2 earned runs in each of his last 5 starts. I think that he dominates here. Somebody told 7.6, so at the 7.5, I like the over, and with the Mets willing to lay that run line, 907, 908 on the betting board. The Giants are going to be on the road facing off against the Miami Marlins. Says you've got Kyle Harrison, who's on the bump for the Giants, and Gallic Quantrill is on the bump for Miami. Miami's a underdog of anywhere between plus 148 to a plus 156, and between minus 178 and minus 178. The number on San Francisco, 8.5 is the total. The over and the under are both at minus 110. And when it comes down to it, I did set the Marlins at a plus 147. So being able to get north of plus 150, I'm going to be able to take a shot on the money line. It's just flat out because I don't know if Kyle Harrison is going to be able to give you too much as a starter. He's been pretty rock solid in terms of being a long relief bullpen piece, but when he was a starter last season, he certainly had his warts. He was posting up an ERA of a 456, fielding independent of a 433. Has good swing and miss stuff. Right now, give you 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's also given up 2 home runs per 9 innings. It's a very small sample size of 9 1/3 innings, and in his first start of the season, gave up 2 runs in 4 innings at home against Washington Nationals. Hard to really make too much out of that. You do have to figure that this is going to be a lot of the Giants bullpen, which has been great. The Giants bullpen currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. You've had Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers, Camilo Duvall, all these guys stepping up, being able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Spencer Bivens has a little bit north of 3 ERA, but he's been a good long guy as well, so you're in good hands there. Meanwhile, on the flip side, you've got a bunch in the Miami Marlins. Well, they have not been a good bullpen. You've got Anthony Bender who's been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. That's great, but you do have something like Anthony Veziano, George Soriano, just so many guys that are posting up north of a 5 ERA. Jesus Sunoco has not been great in this bullpen as well, so you have to have a lot of pause and a lot of trepidation there. And for Cal Quantrill, overall for the season, posting up a 6.09 ERA, only about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. To his credit, though, he's not giving up too much with the deep ball. 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. He's rounding into form in terms of command, now giving up about 3 walks per 9 innings. So positivity should be there, and we have seen him pitch much better recently. He's given up approximately 1 1 earned run in 3 of his last 4 starts, albeit in his last start he went only 3 1/3 innings against the Angels, but he still only gave up 1 run, so you feel good about that. And for this Miami Marlins team, you're starting to get a little bit more power out of these guys. Kyle Stowers has been tremendous. He's give you 360 on base, 10 home runs, and then you've got Augustin Ramirez, along with Matt Mervis, give you 7 home runs apiece. Now Mervis is not hit for any average whatsoever. He's hitting about $175, but Ramirez is moving line. He's hitting for about a 260, and Xavier Edwards being on the injured list, hitting for a cycle last season, about a 265 overall. That does hurt the team a little bit, but AC Sanchez, after a rough start to the season, about a 340 on base. Connor Norby, when he's been out there, has been able to move line as he dealt with a little bit of injury to begin the season, and Liam Hicks has actually been solid with about a 350 on base himself. Flip side, you've got a bunch that has been able to do an okay job of finding way on base as well, but let's call it what it is. Willy Adames has been one of the biggest busts of the baseball season thus far. For Adames, 5 home runs, an inning at 208. You just expect a little bit more there. You've got Eloy Ramos along with Wilmer Flores, though, both to give you 10 home runs apiece. You've got Flores hitting about a 260, Ramos about a 350 on base. Jungle Lee, not necessarily hitting for a ton of power, but he's hitting a 275. You need the guys at the bottom of the lineup like Patrick Bailey, Lamont Wade Jr., Luis Matos to be able to hit a little bit better, and Matos has been out of the lineup for much of the season, so guys hurt this team a little bit, but Mike Yastrzemski's giving you about a 355 on base. I do think that the Giants are going to be rock solid with regards to that bullpen, but do I have my question marks with Kyle Harrison? For Cal Quantrill, I think that he's picking it up a little bit, but we have seen the over in the Marlins ballpark hit at about a 2/3 rate since the beginning of the 2024 season. It just feels like a ballpark which these guys are going to be able to slug it out in. I don't have a lot of faith in either of these starters, so I like the over and the money line of the Miami Marlins. 9-9, 9-10 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals, they hit the road. They're facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks, as Merrill Kelly is going to be getting the start here for the Snakes, and right now it reads to be determined on the bump for the Nationals, so this is a game that is presently off the board. And when I looked last for the Washington Nationals, it was showing that Jake Irvin was most likely going to be getting the start here, and I've handicapped it as such. If you do get Irvin, I'd be willing to lay up to about a minus 220 with regards to that Diamondbacks money line. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 110 with regards to that run line, and then this is a total to where I set it to where in 8.5 or less, I'm going to be taking a look at the over a 9 or higher. I'm going to be diving in on that total under. Now, if it's not Jake Irvin, you're probably going to be experiencing a little bit of a drop with regards to this price. You're probably going to be seeing me put this more around about a minus 235, minus 240 with regards to the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I do think that Jake Irvin is doing for quite a bit of regression if that is who you get here. As for Jake Irvin, his ERA is hovering right around about 3.42, but he is far from a strikeout artist. I'll give him a lot of credit in terms of the command. I still remember season number 1. He was quite shaky there. As far as the season, he's only been giving out about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, but about a 447 fielding, dependent with his 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he has been quite fortunate to be able to get out of the jams that he has. And for Merrill Kelly, he's always been a much better pitcher when he has been at home rather than when he has been on the road. A 3.52 ERA overall for the season. He's getting about 8 strikeouts at 2.3 walks per 9 innings, and has really done a nice job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. Other than the start they had against the New York Yankees, it was either start number 1 or start number 2 of the season. He has been dialed in at home this season. 2.35 ERA compared to a 4.59 ERA on the road. At home, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, so you do like to see that. Now, what you don't like to see for the Arizona Diamondbacks is the fact that this is a bottom 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA. It's been relatively rough without AJ Puck in the fold, though. You do have a pair of guys in Jalen Beeks, coupled with also Shelby Miller, who have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as relatively good long guys. They're getting Justin Martinez back at the fold. That's going to be able to help them out in more of a one-inning sort of situation. And then, additionally, you've been able to have Scott McGough come off the injury list. He's been able to give you about a 3 or so ERA. So he's been able to help out with that regard. It is a Diamondbacks team that, dating back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign, is a top 3 offense in terms of run creation. Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez, both of these guys have combined 31 home runs. And for Suarez, hitting a 225, but it's starting to creep back up there a little bit. Corbin Carroll's been able to give you about a 330 on base. Geraldo Perdomo, a 390 on base, along Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. And Ketel Marte, 8 home runs at his first 105 or so at bats. Do love that. And then Josh Naylor has been able to give you about a 350 on base, and Pavin Smith doing a nice job moving the line as well. Flip side, you've got a bunch in the Washington Nationals that has James Wood really supplying right now. Like, man, this guy's been great. 380 on base, 15 home runs, and CJ Abrams, 8 home runs. He's not necessarily a guy that is going to seek out power, but he's been able to hit for quite a bit of power this season. Nathaniel Lowe's also up to 8 home runs, but hitting just a 220. You do need a little bit more out of Josh Bell, Dylan Cruz, pair of guys hitting below the Bedos line of 200 center, Jacob Young. It's not necessarily been great for the team this season, but you've been able to get Alex Call on base when he's been called upon. He's been able to give you about a 380 on base, but for the Nationals, again, about a 6 ERA. It's survival of the fittest, but with regards to this Nationals bullpen, like they already moved on from Lucas Sims after he was just miserable for the team earlier in the season. Eduardo Salazar, he's giving you north of a 9 ERA. Colin Boucher was a guy that they were trotting out there to begin the season. I don't think that he's with the team anymore, so now they're looking to mix and match with someone like Jackson Rutledge, who has a 4 ERA. Jose Ferrer has been giving you a 6 ERA. Jorge Lopez is giving you a 6 ERA. Kyle Finnegan has been okay, but he's been dealing with a little bit of an injury as well, so it's a little bit of an interesting circumstance. Like I said, 8.5 or less, looking at the over 9 or higher, the under, and for the Diamondbacks, I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 110 with that run line. I would need at least a plus 220 to be able to take a shot on that Washington Nationals money line, and right now not seeing any initial openers out there, so we shall see what is going to be happening there as we go to 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Slam Diego Padres play host the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mitch Keller is on the bump for the Buccos. Nick Pivetta is on the bump for San Diego. San Diego does find themselves anywhere between minus 185 to a minus 192, and between plus 160 to plus 167 is that number on Pittsburgh. 7.5 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And for the San Diego Padres, I did set them on the money line more around a minus 226. If you're looking to lay a run half with them, you're going to be getting a modest plus number. Right now, I'm seeing a plus 105. I'd be willing to take a shot there. I'd be willing to go up to about a minus 115, as Nick Pivetta has been very rock solid at home thus far this season. For Pivetta, overall this season, he has been able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA, but he's been even more impressive when he's been at home, as when he's in San Diego this season, he's posting up a 144 ERA, just 2 home runs allowed in 31 plus innings, and he gets to go up against a guy in Mitch Keller, who he's got a 4.03 ERA career at home, with giving up right around about 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, 5.05 ERA on the road, giving up closer to 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, so has not been the same pitcher when he's been outside of Pittsburgh. And for the San Diego Padres lineup, I will say, outside of Fernando Tatis Jr., the shall we say, Powerball has been a little bit suspect, though Gavin Sheets is starting to supply that. Sheets is up to 11 home runs, about a 275 average, and then Tatis, 13 bombs, 340 on base, but even though Manny Machado is down with regards to the overall power, 6 home runs, he's still been able to hit above a 300. Luis Arias is sitting at 290, Jackson Merrill is hitting at 330, Jake Cronenworth, fresh off the injury list, he's been able to give you darn near a 385 on base, and this is a Padres team that does rank in the top 10 in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got a lot of guys that are just mixing and matching in this bullpen, as you've been able to have Jason Adam, Robert Suarez in the back half of games supply a sub 250 ERA, and then Jeremiah Estrada, Adrian Morejon, Yuki Matsui, these guys would all be able to give you a sub 315 ERA. Flip side for the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm very suspect with regards to this bullpen. They're in the bottom half of the big leagues, as David Benar is pooping the Benar. He's been giving you an ERA that's been hovering right around 486. It's been a little bit better recently, but still, Joey Wentz, Caleb Ferguson, combined about 4 ERA between these two guys. You've actually had Isaac Madsen give you a few relief appearances. He made 3 in total. He's been halfway decent, and Dennis Santana is right now giving you a sub 2 ERA, but for the Pittsburgh Pirates, right now, second worst offense in the big leagues, only to the Colorado Rockies, despite O'Neal Cruz give you 350 on base. He's been able to supply this team with 12 home runs this far this season, but Brian Reynolds has been useless, hitting a 222 with 7 home runs. You just need a little bit more there, and outside of Cruz and Reynolds, nobody else on this roster with north of 3 home runs. Like, my goodness, we're approaching June. They have nobody else with north of 3 home runs. Andrew McCutcheon, 360 on base. He's giving you a little bit of something there. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Joey Bart, when he's been out there, as Bart has been a little bit banged up. Both of these guys, about a 340 to a 350 on base, but so many guys towards the bottom of the fold. Jared Trollo, Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, a bunch of guys in 225 or lower. Tommy Pham has been miserable, so I do think that for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they get all down in this one. I do think that Nick Pivetta and company find a way to be able to get the job done. Now, did set my total 7.6. I do think that they get to Keller and company, so I like the over and the Padres on the run line, 913, 914 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox hit through. They're facing off against the Baltimore Orioles, as Zach Eflin hopes to not be Eflin awful for the Orioles, and Sean Burke goes for Chicago. Chicago is an underdog of anywhere between plus 185 to plus 197, between minus 225 to minus 235. That number on Baltimore, with 8.5 being the total. The over is anywhere between minus 125 to a minus 130. Under is anywhere between plus 105 to a plus 110, and at a plus 173 or higher. I was willing to take a shot on the White Sox on the money line, and I don't do that very often with the Chicago White Sox, but for the White Sox, they're not striking out a ton at the plate this year. Now, they really don't have any power whatsoever, and this is a team that on the road this season, they're averaging fewer than 3.2 runs per game. They are a bottom 5 team in terms of run creation when they're away from home, but I mean, for the Orioles, they're averaging less than 4 runs per game as well. They've been a bottom 10 team with regards to their offense as well. You've got Miguel Vargas for this White Sox team, who's been able to supply play with 8 home runs thus far this season. They're getting Andrew Benintendi off the injured list, 6 home runs, a little bit over 300 on base, and Chase Merideroff has been able to give you about a 370 on base. He's been able to do a solid job there. Lennon Sosa sitting about a 280, and then you've had Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert just not live up to what you were expecting. Both of these guys are hitting for 5 home runs. Both of these guys hitting right around about a 190. Now, I will say Luis Robert, 21 stolen bases is nice, but 276 on base, not great. And Andrew Vaughn, a 218 on base. So that has been very much less than savory, to say the least. And for the bullpen of the Chicago White Sox, this is certainly a bottom 10 unit in all baseball. You just have not been able to get a lot of good innings outside of a really interesting long guy, Mike Vasily. He's actually been really good, giving you about a 2 ERA, but then you've got the likes of Jordan Leisure is posting up north of a 4 ERA, Cam Boucher, Brandon Eisert. Now they're sending Bryce Wilson back to the bullpen. All these guys north of a 5 ERA. And I will say, with regards to our good friend in Mr. Schomburg, he's been posting up a 4.33 ERA. He's been able to round into form a little bit more. 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has given up a little bit north of 1.2 home runs per 9, and he is probably doing for a little bit of regression as his walk numbers are not great. He's giving up well north of 4.5 walks per 9 innings, but Zach Eflin has never really been a great swing and miss guy. He's always good with his command. Zach Eflin is always going to give you like 2 walks or fewer for 9 innings, but that said, for Zach Eflin, he's just allowing too much general contact. 4.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's allowing 2.4 bombs per 9. I recognize it's a small sample size of 6 starts, but a 5.40 ERA, a 6.13 fielding independent. Ever since he has come off the injury list, he's been getting banged around like a piñata. As in his last 2 starts, he has allowed a combined 13 runs, 12 of which have been earned, giving up 7 bombs. So that's not great, and it's not like he's backed up by some sort of amazing bullpen as well. The Baltimore Orioles currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Felix Bautista has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. He's been rock solid, but we have seen big-time regression out of Yunier Cano this season. As for Cano, you've got he, along with Matt Bowman, Sir Anthony Dominguez, guys like this, posting up a north of a 4 ERA. Even Bautista is starting to regress. I think that he's now up to north of a 3.5 ERA as well. Keegan Aiken has actually been solid as a long guy, and then for the Baltimore Orioles, not necessarily getting a lot of power out of this lineup. Cedric Mullins, 10 bombs, give you about 325 on base, but he has regressed in terms of getting on base from the beginning part of the season. Ryan Mountcastle hitting for a 240 with 2 home runs. You just need a little bit more there. Jackson Holiday has been able to about a 275. Gunnar Henderson has been all over the place. 7 bombs, about a 320 on base, but when it comes to having the injuries to guys like Jordan Westberg and company, that's been rough. Dylan Carlson is still hitting below the middle sign of 200. Tyler O'Neill has not been able to give you a whole lot fly either, so interesting scenario here. Going to be willing to take a shot on that Chicago White Sox money line, as I was willing to take anything of a plus 175 or higher, and don't have necessarily a ton of faith in Schomburg here, but again, both of these offenses have really struggled, so semi-total at 8.4 here at the 8.5. I'm going to be willing to dive in on this total under as well. 915, 916 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays play host to the Athletics as Jeffrey Springs goes for the A's and Chris Bassett is the hook, line, and sinker for Toronto. And Toronto, anywhere between a minus 155 to a minus 166 favorite, plus 130 to plus 145. That number on the A's. 8 is the total. The over and the under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And for Toronto, I set them at a minus 131. Being able to get north of a plus 135 is my buy point on the Athletics. Recognize that Chris Bassett has actually had a really nice season thus far. He's been able to lower his ERA to sub-3. He's been able to cut down on some of the walks issues that have really been plaguing him over the last few seasons, and his strikeout numbers are up as well. For Chris Bassett, he's given you 9.2 strikeouts and 1.9 walks per 9 innings. Now, he is up to a 3.38 ERA. He had a sub-3 ERA going into his last start against the Rays, got completely lit up, gave up 5 runs in that one, and that's something that you do want to be mindful of. 3 runs or more for Bassett, given up in 3 out of the last 5 starts, so he's coming in a little bit of shaky form, and for Jeffrey Springs, it's been a pretty shaky season for him in general. As for Mr. Springs, he's right now supplying you with about a 3.97 ERA, and he's been able to round into form a little bit more recently. 3 earned runs or fewer allowed in each of his last 5 starts. Granted, he gave up an unearned run or 2 in that start against the Philadelphia Phillies, but for Jeffrey Springs, he's having to pitch out there in Sacramento. That's just ballooning up his numbers. A 5.88 ERA at home compared to a 2.45 ERA on the road, and on the road, he's given up just 3 home runs in 33 innings. Overall for the season, he's given up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. So I do think that he's going to continue to round in form. And then for the Athletics, this is a lineup that has a pair of guys who will be able to give you a double-figure amount of homers, as Tyler Soderstrom along with Brent Rooker will both be able to supply that. Now, you do have a guy in Soderstrom who's been stuck on like 1 home run over the last 25 or so games, so he's really slowed down there, but still moving the line, hitting about a 260. Lawrence Butler has been a little bit hit or miss, but he's been able to about a 250 for this unit. If I had JJ Bleday, I give you nothing whatsoever, but Jacob Olson hitting north of 350, starting to draw a few walks. He has been really able to round into form. Do have to have your trepidations with this Athletics bullpen. They're currently in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Even Mason Miller is such a good closer. He's had his issues this year, as he, TJ McFarland, both are giving you north of a 5 ERA, has not been so tremendous out of Tyler Ferguson, who's been supplying north of 4 ERA. Do like what Justin Cerner is providing with a sub-3 ERA, but certainly with Jacob Lopez going yesterday, didn't necessarily get the world's greatest amount of length out of him. And then for the Toronto Blue Jays, it's a slightly above average bullpen. You've had Jeff Hoffman really poop the bed for the team, but Chad Green has been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Yuriel Rodriguez has been a solid long guy. I like what I've been seeing out of Brandon Little, has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. And then with regards to this lineup for the Blue Jays, it's just powerless. Like Dalton Varsho, who missed north of 30 games to begin the season, he's missed 33 games in total, entered into yesterday with the team lead in home runs with 8, and he's currently hitting at the Mendoza line of 200. Now the other guys are moving the line for the team, as you've got Tone Calzade, Leander Kirk, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., only between about a 270 to 285. Guerrero about a 380 on base, but just 7 home runs thus far this season. Anthony Santander has been useless. 6 home runs, hitting about a $180. George Springer has been able to give you a 366 on base. So with the Blue Jays not being able to hit the deep ball, and with the way that Jeffrey Springs is pitched on the road, do think that you've got some good value here on the A's. We'll take a plus 132 or higher with regards to this money line, and did set my total at 8.4, so here at the 8, I also do like the over. 917, 918 on the betting board. The Los Angeles Angels, if they're facing off against the Cleveland Guardians, as it is Luis Ortiz getting the start for Cleveland, and Jose Soriano is on the bump for Los Angeles. 8 is the total. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And for Cleveland, it's setting between minus 139 to minus 148, and between plus 122 to a plus 135 is that number on Los Angeles. And I did set the Guardians at a minus 143 on the money line. Right now, seeing a minus 141, minus 139. I'm going to be willing to lay that number for Jose Soriano. He's done a really nice job keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up just over a half a home run per 9 innings, but he doesn't have a lot of command. 6.8 strikeouts and 4.3 walks per 9 innings. He's been able to give you a 373 ERA, but with those walks, typically that means that you're going to knock yourself out of the start a little bit earlier than what you'd like, and it's a Los Angeles Angels bullpen that's currently 30th in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Now, they've been able to replace some of the less than trustworthy bullpen pieces with a few guys who are a little bit better, but still, it's not like it's been too great, as Ryan Zefrion is probably your best piece out there in the bullpen. He's been posting up north of 4 ERA. Kenley Jansen has been a nightmare for the team. Brock and Roll Burke, he has not been great for this team, as he's been posting up north of a 5 ERA. You've got a lot of guys that you're trying to mix and match with, and just no combinations have really been working out for this team. Now for the Angels, you have plenty of powers. You've got a combined 29 home runs out of Logan O'Hoppe along Taylor Ward. Ward's just not hitting for a lot of average. 265 on base. In general, Nolan Schunel has been able to give about a 370 on base. You've got Kyron Paris, Joe Adell will give you a 6 home runs apiece, but both of these guys are in below the Mendoza line of 200, and Luis Arnifa has been about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, it's a very top-heavy lineup. You've been able to get really good production out of Stephen Kwan, who's been able to hit north of 300, and Jose Ramirez, he's up to hitting for about a 370 on base, 9 home runs out of him. Kyle Benzardo, he's been the team leader in homers with 10, but he's been only hitting about a 215, and then you get to the bottom of the lineup, and Daniel Sheeman has actually been rock solid for the team, north of a 335 on base with 7 home runs, but like stuff, Lane Thomas, Austin Edges, Bo Naylor, whichever of those catchers goes, Nolan Jones, all these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, and for the Guardians, we've seen quite a bit of a drop-off with regards to their bullpen from a season ago. You've been able to have Matthew Fessa give you a few solid innings out of that bullpen. Hunter Gaddis, Kate Smith, both of these guys have been able to give you sub-3 ERA, but Emmanuel Clase, he's been a little bit better recently, so been a rough year out of him. Jacob Junis as a long guy, is posting up north of a 4 or 5 ERA. Getting back Andrew Walters should be able to help. And said, I just don't think that with the LA Angels, you're going to be able to get too much out of this bullpen as well, and I do think that the Guardians are going to be able to hit them relatively hard. So I told it at 8.7, especially with the fact that Luis Ortiz has been able to give you north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but north of 4.5 walks per 9 innings. He's posting up a 473 ERA, so I do think that he's going to yield a few runs here as well. So do like that over, and I do like the Guardians on the money line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers hit the road. They're facing off against the Kansas City Royals. Seth Lugo goes for the Royals. Casey Mize is on on the bum for Detroit. Detroit is a minus 110 to a minus 120 favorite, and between even money to plus 105 is that number on Kansas City. 8 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110. And for the Royals, I did set them at a minus 127 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to dive in here as Casey Mize, I do think is due for a little bit of regression. For Mize, he's been very good thus far this season, posting up a 2.45 ERA, but that comes with a 3.89 fielding dependent, giving up 1.3 home runs and only about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. You've got a guy in Seth Lugo who's also been at his best when he's been at home. He's got a 3.02 ERA. Fielding dependent is darn near a point higher than his ERAs. He's getting less than 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has given up a little bit north of a home run per 9 innings himself, but that goes down to about a 2.41 ERA when he is at home. And for the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers, both of these bullpens have been relatively comparable. As for both of these teams, they do rank in the top 10 with that regard. Royals at 3.38 bullpen ERA, 3.28 with the Detroit Tigers. And for the Tigers, they can do a little bit more mixing and matching with just the overall versatility, like a guy in Brant Herter is able to give you multiple innings, and he's able to come in at darn near any time. You've been able to have likes of Tommy Kahnle, Will Vaz, Brennan Hennepy all be able to do a nice job supplying this team with a sub-3 ERA. You've had Tyler Holden be a little bit hit or miss, but all in all, these guys have been able to do a nice job holding it down. Meanwhile, you've got a Kansas City Royals bullpen with Lucas Erceg, Carlos Aceves giving you a sub-3 ERA in the 8th and 9th innings. Steven Cruz has been able to do a tremendous job of being able to supply for the team as well. Now, the Detroit Tigers have the better lineup. The two, you've got a trio of guys who will be able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs. Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Spencer Torkelson. Torkelson give you about a 350 with regards to that on base, and Green and Carpenter both hitting about a 275. Zach McKinstry with the line hitting about a 270 for this unit as well. Javi Baez, Gleyber Torres, Dylan Dingler, all in at least a 275 as well. These guys have been able to do a rock solid job, but for the Kansas City Royals, Vinny Pasquantino is starting to heat up a little bit more. He's been able to give you 8 home runs. He's been able to hit for about a 250 for this team. Bobby Witt Jr., you expect a little bit more out of him. 5 home runs at a 350 on base. Miguel Garcia is hitting for about a 305 bombs as well. And then Salvador Perez has just been a disaster. 4 home runs, hitting for just a 260 on base. But at the bottom lineup, Kyle Isbell, Drew Waters are both hitting above a 265. And I do think that with the Royals being at home, they do find a way to be able to get the job done and persevere here. I did set my money line at a minus 127, so I want to take a shot on that money line. And here at the 8, I like the over, so I tilted at 8.3. 921, 922 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays hit they're facing off against the Houston Astros. Framber Valdez is on the bum for Houston, and Ryan Pepiot is on the bum for the Rays. The Rays are an underdog of any between plus 140 to a plus 145, minus 160 to minus 166 is that number on Houston. 7.5 is the total, under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105 for Houston. I did set their money line price at a minus 167. Right now, the lone run line price I'm finding is over there at FanDuel, and right now, for that Houston Astros run line, you're going to be able to get a plus 136. Sign me up there. I was willing to take a plus 116 or higher for Framber Valdez. I do think that he's going to be able to give a relatively solid start here. He's been, posting up only about 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's tied for a career low from 3.39 ERA, comparable fielding independent. He's giving up 3 walks per 9 innings, but keeping the ball in the yard, giving up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, but he's backed up by a lineup that is third in the American League in terms of runs per game with 4.7, and for Ryan Pepiot, even though the ERA is not too bad, 3.55 ERA, 4.43 fielding dependent, career low 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's only giving up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings as well, so a little bit of shakiness there. And for this Houston Astros lineup, you've been able to have quite a few guys be able to produce for this team, as Isak Paredes all of a sudden has been able to give you 11 home runs. That's been rock solid. Do have a lot of guys that have given you approximately 7 or 8 home runs. Jeremy Pena, Jose Altuve being the main two of these guys, and for Altuve, it was a slow start to the season. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. Christian Walker's up to 7 bombs. His on-base percentage just has not been there this season, though, but after Cam Smith was having a little bit of a rough start to the season, now he's giving you north of a 330 on base, and this is an Astros bullpen that is in the top 5 in the big leagues in terms of ERA, as you've had a lot of guys have been able to mix and match. The Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, both give you a sub 275 ERA. Caleb Ward is giving you 2 ERA. Josh Hader looks like the Josh Hader of old, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, still a solid bullpen. They're still a top 10 team with regards to ERA. That said, you've been able to just have a few guys that have been able to come through for you. Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, Pete Fairbanks, they're posting up a sub 3 ERA. Eric Gorze as well, but Edwin Uceta as a long guy has been posting up a 5 ERA. Mason Montgomery has had a little bit of less than savoriness, and this is a Tampa Bay Rays team that is slightly below average with regards to run creation. You do have a pair of guys, Junior Caminero, Brandon Lau, who have been able to give you double-figure amount of homers, both hitting about a 250, but not providing a lot in in terms of on base. Yandy Diaz a 279 on base, so that's a little bit of an issue. Taylor Walls has been hitting below the middle sign of 200. Danny Jansen, Christopher Morel, both of these guys in below 205. And when Ben Rofit has gotten at bats, he's hitting less than 100. So it's not great, especially with Jake Magnum being on the under list. So I do think that for the Astros, they do a nice job being able to get to Pepe out, and they do find a way to persevere, get the job done. Did some I told it at 8.2, so here at the 7.5, I do like the over, and I do like that Houston Astros run line. 923, 924 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins at the road, they're facing off against the Seattle Mariners. As we know that it's going to be Zebby Matthews who's going to be on the bump for Minnesota. As of right now, it's all to be determined on the bump for the Seattle Mariners, so this is a game that's presently off the board. If you look at the projections, they're thinking that Brian Wu is going to be saying woohoo to another start, and if you do get Wu versus Zebby Matthews, set my money line price on the Seattle Mariners at a minus 161, so want to go up to a minus 160 there, plus 162 or higher, looking at the Twins, and then we'll be going 7.5 or less to the over and 8 or higher to the under. For Zebby Matthews, he had really good swing and miss stuff at the minor league level, really throughout his entire career. He came up to the big league level last season, and he struggled, and he has gotten a few starts already at the big league level thus far this season, and well, he's struggling once again. In 2 starts, he has posted up a ERA that is hovering right around 7.71. Now, the fielding independent is actually a 0.78 because he has been able to fly 14 strikeouts in 7 innings. He's giving up 5 walks per 9, which I find that to be hilarious. He's got a fielding independent and an ERA split that is about 7, but that said, for Zebby Matthews, he's walking a few too many guys, and balls have been hit and play against him very much, so he's either getting a strikeout or he's getting hit relatively hard. That's not what you want to see. And then for Mr. Brian Wu, he's been able to do a really good job of just being able to round into form in general, as this guy is doing a solid job in terms of swing and miss stuff. He's posting up about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but about 0.7 home runs and 1.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, 240 ERA, 268 fielding independent, playing in a ballpark that suppresses offense more in Seattle than Coors Field elevates offense. And for the Seattle Mariners, despite that, you still had big dumper Cal Raleigh being one of the best power hitters in all baseball. He's supplying 19 home runs. He's giving you north of 350 on base. We have seen Ori Polanco have a bit of regression, but still give you about a 275 average, 10 home runs. Julio Rodriguez is up to 10 home runs after a rough start to the season. Randy Arozarena about a 360 on base. JP Crawford about a 375 on base. These guys have really been able to supply the goods. And for the Mariners, top 8 team in terms of bullpen area as well as Andres Munoz has been one of the most dominant closers in all baseball. And Gabe Spire, he's been able to do a nice job as a bit of a reliever as well. A 225 ERA ever since Matt Brash came off the injured list, has yet to allow a run. Casey Lugumina has been a godsend for the team. And flip side, you've got yourself a Twins bullpen that has been themselves a top 5 team with regards to bullpen ERA, as Danny Kalum has yet to give up an earned run this season, and Yohan Duran, he's been posting up an ERA that's been hovering right around 1. You've been able to get good production out of the likes of Justin Topa, Cole Sands, both give you a sub 250 ERA. Griffin Jackson's had a little bit of a rough season, but on all, these guys are doing a nice job of rounding into form. The big thing for the Minnesota Twins, finding a little bit more power, as you've got Byron Buxton, who's been dealing with a injury. Now, it should be a case where he should be good to go in this one. It seems like he should be activated off of the concussion injured list for this game. 10 home runs, hitting about a 260, but it might take him a game or two to be able to get back online. You've had Ty France be able to give you about a 255 average along Ryan Jeffers. These guys have been solid with Harrison Bader. He's been able to give you about a 360 or so with regards to that on-base percentage. Royce Lewis, so ever since he's come off the injured list, just has not been able to give you too much of anything. And for the Minnesota Twins, it's been a little bit of a miss with regards to that lineup. So I did set the Mariners where I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 160 with that money line. If you're looking at the run line, by the way, I would take a plus 128 or higher there. And then with regards to the total 7.5 or less, looking at the over in 8 or higher to the under. 925, 926 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox are on the road. They're facing off against the Atlanta Braves, as Lucas Giolito is on the bump for the Boston Red Sox, and then it is going to be Grant Holmes on the bump for the Atlanta Braves. Right now with the Red Sox, you're finding this game relatively off the board. I'm not quite sure why, but that said, I've got my handicap prices as I'm willing to lay up to a minus 155 with regards to this Braves running line, plus 157 looking at the Red Sox, and then somebody told to wear an 8.5 or less, so I'm going to be in on the over at 9 or higher, the under. Lucas Giolito is actually coming off of a stunningly good start in his last appearance against the Baltimore Orioles. I just attribute that to the Baltimore Orioles being a inconsistent and strange team this far this season, as for Giolito, he is still posting up an ERA that's hovering right around about a 5.27. He's been only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, way down there, giving up a home run half per 9 innings, and He has given up a grand total of 13 runs across his last 4 starts as well, so I feel like that was a little bit more of a flash in the pan rather than something that we can rely upon and something that we're going to see coming. Now, for the Atlanta Braves, did have to use up quite a bit of that bullpen yesterday as they did have a double dip, so you've got a rested bunch in the Boston Red Sox and a team in the Atlanta Braves that they did have to play 18-plus innings yesterday, but so you've got Grant Holmes, who's been able to do an okay job. I'll be able to supply some strikeout stuff, 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, the fielding depends, a 484. ERA is more around a 368 as he's giving up a home run half and 4 walks per 9 innings, but comes in relatively good form, 1 or 2 runs allowed in 4 out of his last 5 appearances. And for the Atlanta Braves, does feel like the offense is starting to come around a little bit more for this team, as you still have had a rough season for Michael Harris. Harris just has not been able to give you too much in general of the LBs. He's been hitting about a 240 for the team, but at the bottom of the lineup, you've had Alex Verdugo be able to give you a 325 on base. Austin Riley has been struggling a little bit with regards to power, but Marcell Ozuna 8+ home runs worth of 400 on base. Matt Olson has been able to give you 12+ home runs, and while the average is not necessarily great, he still find a way to be able to move the line in terms of an on-base percentage worth of a 330. And Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back in the lineup, he's been able to give the team already a pair of bombs. He's doing a nice job being able to find a way on base. Do like that. And for the Atlanta Braves, this has been a pretty solid bullpen this season. Desmel Hernandez has been able to give you a sub-250 ERA. Now, I have no faith whatsoever in Rafael Montero, but that said, you've got Dylan Lee giving you a sub-3 ERA. Pierce Johnson has been solid, and Rossio Iglesias certainly has left something to be desired. But for the Boston Red Sox, it just feels like a rudderless bunch ever since Alex Bregman went on the injured list. You've been able to have a good amount of production out of Weiler Abreu, 12+ home runs this far this season. Has been a little bit hit or miss over the last few weeks, but still is doing a solid job there. And then Rafael Devers, he's not going to be picking up a glove, but he's picked it up with his bat. 12 home runs, north of 400 on base. Jaron Duran is starting to hit for closer to about a 275, 280 now, but you've had Christian Campbell really start to regress. They're dealing with Rami Gonzalez on the injured list, so Nick Sogard, Abraham Toro, guys like this are starting to see some more at-bats. Marcelo Meyer, I think that he's going to be solid moving forward, but you know what? He's still young, he's still inconsistent, and Trevor Story has been useless. And then with regards to that Red Sox bullpen, Greg Weissert has been able to give you a sub-350 ERA, but Liam Hendricks has not been great, even though he did overcome a lot off the field to be able to get back here. Garrett Woodlock is a little bit hit or miss. Aroldis Chapman, he just always seems to fail you at the world's worst time. So I do think that the Braves should be a sizable favorite. 8.5 for let's looking at the over 9 or higher. The under, and for the Braves, 1 to minus 155 on that money line, plus 157 or higher. I'm going to be looking at the Sox, 927, 928 on the betting board. It is the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're going to be playing against the Texas Rangers. The homestanding Rangers are sending out there to be determined. So this is a game that's currently off the board. Matthew Liberatore, he gets to start for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, it's looking like Jack Leiter Jr. should be getting the start here for the Rangers, and if you do indeed get Jack Leiter Jr. going against Matthew Liberatore, I'd be setting the St. Louis Cardinals as a pretty sizable favorite. I actually set the Cardinals at a minus 134, so we'll go up to a minus 133 there, plus 135 or higher. Looking at the Rangers, and then set a total to where an 8 or less. I'm in on the over 8.5 or higher, the under. Matthew Liberatore has been really good this year for the St. Louis Cardinals. How about supplying a sub-3 ERA with one of the best fielding independents that you're going to find in all of baseball? For Liberatore, he's done a really good job of not putting guys on cheaply and not giving up hard contact. A half a home run and 1.2 walks per 9 innings, albeit he's only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 273 ERA, 251 fielding independent with 2 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 5 starts. And for Jack Leiter, had a few nice starts to begin the season, went on the injured list, and since coming off the injured list has been a little bit more shaky. 3+ runs allowed in 3 out of his last 5 starts, only getting 6.5 strikeouts and 4.5 walks per 9 innings, 417 ERA, 448 fielding independent. He's backed up by a Texas Rangers lineup that they are currently just lost in the wilderness right now. Like, my goodness, these guys have just not been able to generate any sort of offense whatsoever. When it comes to this Rangers team, it's been especially bad at home this season, as for the Rangers, they're averaging 3.3 runs per game at home. Only the Kansas City Royals are right now averaging fewer runs per game at home. This despite the fact that Wyatt Langford has been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers this season. You just have had some struggling superstars. Corey Seager is right now on the injured list, so that's been hurting them, but you've got Adolis Garcia, Jake Berger, Jock Peterson, Marcus Semien, all hitting at 210 or lower. Kyle Higashioka is giving you nothing whatsoever. Josh Young has been solid, 7 bombs. He's hitting at 275, and Josh Smith is moving the line a little bit. And for them, for the Rangers, about a league average bullpen. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. You've been able to get some good innings out of Robert Garcia, Chris Martin, these two guys supplying a 225 ERA or better. You've had Jacob Latz be able to come in as a little bit of a long guy, give you a sub-3.5 2.5 ERA, but Luke Jackson has been all over the place. Jacob Webb has been all over the place as well. So you've got your issues on that front. And then on the other side, you've got yourself a bunch in the St. Louis Cardinals who have been able to round into form with regards to their bullpen. First month or so of the season, these guys really struggled, but Ryan Helsley continues to be one of the better closers that you're going to find in all of baseball. You've been able to have Phil Matone, Matt Savanson, both be able to spy a sub-265 ERA. You've had Jojo Romero round into form after a rough start to the season as well. And for St. Louis, not a necessarily great power team. They're in the bottom 12 in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis, but that said, you've got Larson Newbar is able to supply 8 home runs at a 355 on base. Brendan Donovan continues to hit a 335. Been a rough season for Nolan Arenado, 311 on base, 6 home runs. You expect a little bit more there, but Mason Wynn, 6 home runs, north of 355 on base. Getting back Ivan Herrera is right now hitting above a 350 and 5 home runs in his first 81 at-bats of the season. Is pretty rock solid as well, so did set the Cardinals as a sizable Super Bowl favorite. One will go up to a minus 133 there, plus 135 or higher. Looking at the Rangers, and then 8 or less like the over, 8.5 or the under, and then we have things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The New York Yankees are on the road going against the LA Dodgers, as it is going to be old Tony Gonsolin on the bump for the Dodgers. Max Fried is on the bump for the New York Yankees. Yankees are between minus 130 to minus 135 favorites in that neighborhood of plus 110 to plus 120. That number on the Dodgers, 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 120, and the under is even. Right now, if you're looking at that run line price on the New York Yankees, I'm finding one number as high as a plus 140 in terms of laying a run half with the New York Yankees, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot there. Say we're between plus 120 to a plus 140. So, I mean, you've got a lot of results there, as I would need at least plus 125 to take a shot on the Dodgers. So I'm going to be willing to take that plus 140 run line that I'm seeing at Caesars on the New York Yankees. As for Max Fried, he's been so dominant this year. Now, he's going to regress from a sub-150 ERA. This is not sustainable, especially with the fact that he's a good strikeout pitcher. He's not necessarily an amazing strikeout pitcher. For Fried, 8.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, .29 ERA, 257 fielding independent, only giving up about 2 or so walks per 9 innings. And for Tony Gonsolin, what I will say for him is that the swing and miss stuff is very much up this year. He's got a 468 ERA, but that fielding independent more around a 447, 10 strikeouts of 4.3 walks per 9 innings, and has been giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. So it's gotten tattooed in his last 2 starts, a combined 9 innings against the Mets and the LA Angels. He's given up a combined 8 runs, so a little bit less than tremendous there. And this is a Dodgers team that's hovering right around about league average with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've had so many guys out of the lineup due to injury: Kirby Yates, Bruce Gratterall. You've got Michael Kopech and so many others, Blake Trine currently down and out for the count. But you had Ben Casparis, Jack Dreyer as long guys be able to spy a sub-305 ERA. Anthony Band has been a little bit rough, posting up a 4 ERA. And Tanner Scott has been really not good, north of a 4.5 ERA as well. But for the LA Dodgers, what is good is this offense. Top 3 team in terms of run scoring. Shohei Ohtani, 20 bombs, 395 on base. He has been tremendous. You've got a whole bunch of guys with between 8 and 10 home runs from there. Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Paez, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. And for Freddie Freeman, hitting about a 360. Paez is hitting a 270. Teoscar Hernandez is hitting above 300. Will Smith, even though he's not giving you a ton of power, 457 on base. He has been amazing there. Needed Michael Conforto, Max Muncy to be able to pick it up, but on all these guys have been rock solid. But you know, is able to match that firepower. That'd be the New York Yankees, especially with a guy by the name of Aaron Judge, who's giving you a 488 on base with 18 home runs this season. Then got a pair of guys in Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, combining for 23 home runs. Both of these guys have been pretty solid in terms of getting on base. Rice about a 330 on base, 350 on base. Trent Grisham, then Paul Goldschmidt, though he's not supplying a lot of power, hitting for north of a 400 on base. Cody Bellinger, after a rough start to the season, he's rounding into form as well. And this is a Yankees bullpen that has had Devin Williams be absolutely terrible in that bullpen. But that said, you still have quite a few guys that are able to give you a good performance. Jonathan Loaiza, a sub-2 ERA. Yuri De Los Santos has actually been rock solid. Luke Weaver continues to supply a sub-1 ERA. Fernando Cruz being on the injury list has hurt this team a little bit, but all in all, I do think that they're going to be able to find their way in the bullpen, and I do think that for the Yankees, being able to get that big plus number on the run line, that's where I'm going to be landing. And I did set my total at 8.7 again with Fried. I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression there, but do think that the Yankees get to Gonsolin, so like the 8.5 over and the run line of the Yankees, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Rob Donaldson of the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be able for those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters here, name does not matter, so per usual, please just send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast. I had a 5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast. I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.